Okay, well, we are back here in the furnace. It is very toasty in this building. I do have the air conditioning on. This is the only room that gets any air conditioning right now, which makes working miserable. You can see we've been doing some demo in here, getting hopefully the last of these cubicles upstairs out, or at least down this week, and then I got to bring in another roll-off dumpster. I can take you over to the other room here in a minute, but a lot of what Lauren and I have been working on are trying to figure out how do we fit these rooms in this existing space, and there's a lot of things that are needing to get addressed, and that's what I'm hopefully going to show you today. So without further ado, let me try to frame up some of these. Okay, so hopefully I have this in the frame, but up here you can see we've got several, I'm gonna call them pop-outs. So upstairs, that is the area where we are gonna have either some lounge space or possibly like a conference room that could be rented out by guests or other people in the public. And we're having to peel back some of this in order to have it look good, or at least presentable, in the room that's down here on this first level. And so in doing so, it's creating some challenges. We are gonna be left with at least some overhang. It's gonna be give or take about 3.5 feet maybe, which we'll have to work into the design. I think it's likely gonna be above the headboard so that maybe we've got some soffit lighting coming down on either side of the headboard so you can read at night. You can also see where this door is here. This is also gonna get pushed back, and we're gonna push it back so that it's hopefully in line with the wall that's here at the back of the bookcases. So that wall is going to ultimately get pushed back so that we have one level plane, and then we end up with a pop out to about here, again one level plane, so that we don't have all these appendages popping out. So that's one thing that we're having to work through. What that ultimately does is we lose square footage upstairs in the lounge space when we do that, which is unfortunate, but the lounge space is secondary. Or even if it's a conference room, it's still an okay sized conference room. It'll comfortably fit 8 to 10 people. But ultimately, we're a hotel, and so we have to think about the comfort of our guests. These guest rooms are gonna get used on a daily basis. The conference room, lounge space may not get used as frequently, and as nice as it would be to have, ultimately we need to think about our guests first. So let me take you to some of the other areas we're having some issues working through. Okay. So this is our lobby, and where the camera is currently sitting is probably going to be like on top of our front reception desk. But what we've got here is our elevator, and I'll show it to you guys. This was originally a chair lift, and so it's about big enough for somebody pushing a wheelchair, and that is about it. And so what we're needing to figure out, and I'll be honest, that's the first time I've stepped foot in there, so I was a little bit relieved that I was able to get out without it just like dropping to the basement. We're having to expand this to make it bigger so that it can comfortably fit at least 2 people plus a luggage cart. And so what we've kind of come to realize that we're kind of limited on space. A lot of it is due to things like this. So this post is supporting the second floor mezzanine, and there's a couple of these in this first level, one of which is buried in this wall over here to my right, your left, maybe. I don't know how this is gonna actually show on the screen. And so we're trying to figure out how much space can we realistically gain. I can't go past these beams without doing some major structural modifications of the mezzanine upstairs. We also need to take into account the basement too. Right now there's a hole in the floor, and this is a cast concrete floor between the first floor and the basement. And so whatever expansion we do is going to result in some definite structural changes, some saw cutting. A thought that I've had is as we get closer to this beam with the hole, or this post with the hole, now that post is sitting on something that's not as structurally sound. And in so all likelihood, we're gonna have to frame new structural walls, a shaft for this elevator that's gonna go from below these beams all the way down. And I'm hoping that we can just do like a 2x8 or so stud wall above these beams on the third floor, or the second floor, excuse me. And then we would take a new concrete block wall probably all the way to the basement. At least that's kind of my current assumption of how we would do that. What this ends up doing is it creates a very tricky situation for us on the second floor. And I'm gonna reposition the camera so that you can see that a little bit better. Okay, so if we enlarge this elevator out to this post, you can kind of see in the camera angle, I don't have the best angle or line of sight in here, but if that shaft is going straight up above that area, we now lose quite a bit of walk space and access into what would be our conference room up there. And so that's another tricky spot we're having to navigate. Depending on how large we make it, we definitely don't want less than 30 inches to 3 feet of walking space. And so it does, cramp down what we are able to do. We potentially could enlarge the elevator to the north, assuming that we don't have a block wall to go through that direction. If we do, we can only enlarge it to the south. Ultimately, the fix to get into the conference room will be to navigate to the other side of the elevator. Not the best flow up there. The other concern that Lauren has is how it's going to ultimately look. We were hoping to have this open, potentially with like wrought iron railing up there to really make this space feel a lot larger. She's got plans for a fairly good sized chandelier over the middle of this, I'll call it atrium. And so she's trying to work through, okay, if this elevator is too close, we now have this weird corner up there that you can see from down here. And so ultimately, I think she is considering right now walling in this semicircle all the way up to the ceiling in order to kind of create this atrium. Unfortunately, it does make it to where upstairs is not as open, but we'll just have to navigate that from a design standpoint. Ultimately, we are restricted by things that we really can't move without spending exorbitant amounts of money, and so we're having to pick and choose what is the best way for our guests to experience the space, what limitations do we have that we have to work around. And I think that we're navigating those things. We are ultimately going to open up a lot of this floor. Let me get a new shot of this. So a lot of this behind me is going to get opened up completely. There will be some posts just because we can't really afford to eliminate these. We could move them potentially, and that may take place. We may move back to like this intersection and change what's cantilevered and what's not. In doing so, that would be done only if it makes sense with the layout of how we're going to have furniture and stuff in this space. We want downstairs to feel very open, and so we're going to end up eliminating this closet entirely. We're going to open up this back wall so that it gets all the way to the back entrance of the hotel, and back there we may have like a breakfast bar area for guests in the morning to get coffee and pastries. But in reality, we want this space to feel much more open. I think by eliminating weird appendages, pop-outs, as much as possible, opening up walls as wide as possible to create kind of a good flow from the front to the back of the hotel is our ultimate goal. And I think once we accomplish that, it will ultimately feel much larger. I think also color, the right colors. Right now everything is beige. It's all the same tone. And because of that, it's very difficult to discern, space. And so I think by incorporating the right colors, and you would be surprised, even dark colors, Lauren may lean towards some darker colors or some patterns just to create some depth and create some more dynamic contrast, I guess, to this space. So we're going to move over to the next area. So this is what I was talking about. This entire area is going to get opened up. We're going to lose the spiral staircase. As interesting as spiral staircases are, they're not very practical, not always the safest. Plus, this one doesn't really look very pretty. I think it was put in sometime 80s, 90s, and just isn't really period correct. Beyond that, we have a couple of bathrooms back here, and we really don't need that much bathroom space. So I think what we're going to end up doing is enlarging one, creating a men's and a women's out of that one larger space, and eliminating the other, like I said, to have kind of a breakfast bar area down here in the lobby for guests to come down, get some coffee, and have some pastries in the morning. Okay, so taking you upstairs, this is what we were talking about. We can enlarge this out a certain amount. This is the elevator behind me. Ultimately, the elevator is going to open up. This would be to the east. Currently, it opens to the south. We don't think that's very functional. On all 3 floors, it makes more sense for it to open up to the east. And so it's going to get larger this direction and likely this direction. And you can see if it does, we've just lost our path into this room, which is a challenge. This is going to be just usable space. It's not big enough for a room. It's not really tied on anywhere to make another room bigger. And so really it needs to be its own space. And so we have to find a way around it, and there is another path. We'll have to open up the wall on the other side of the elevator into that room. I think that's really our only choice, but at least we do have some kind of path into that space. But you can see, you know, in an ideal world, we'd like to have this all the way open to create a lot more space into the lobby. I think we're just limited with, you know, what is actually here, and not having to totally reinvent the wheel everywhere, so that we can spend the right money in the right places so that guests have comfort. And so I think we're likely going to have kind of this spot where it's very Instagrammable. Maybe this is wallpaper. We know that we're going to have a big chandelier that would be behind us that would make for great photos. We would be able to see down into the lobby. The lobby could see up here. But ultimately, to accommodate kind of these odd spaces based off of the fact that this is going to get made larger, we don't necessarily want to look asymmetrical from downstairs. And so to keep that appearance of an atrium that's somewhat symmetrical, I think that we are going to have to ultimately wall these half walls all the way up and in. A little bit of a bummer, but we're going to find a way to make lemonade out of these lemons. The final thing I want to talk about is we have this interesting situation up here in the second floor. We think the original second floor was not as wide as it currently is. This space right here was an addition. You can see actually the old original moldings up here. And so this tells me this was all part of one room. They're the same moldings that were in the big room. The issue that we have is this area is framed slightly lower than the upper portion. The other issue is we have ceilings that are a little bit lower right here than we have up in the other area. And so ultimately we're gonna have a step up, and we're gonna have a pair of rooms on this side, a pair of rooms on the other side. It's mirrored, so it's a very similar situation on both sides. What we've determined our path is gonna be is that we're gonna have our hallway that gives us access to the second room. And then in this lower area, we're gonna have kind of a shotgun style bathroom. We'll have a larger bathroom in this second room at the far end. And then we have this kind of vestibule area that you come into in each of these rooms up here. And then you would step up into the sleeping area. That's really the only way that we could come about with a realistic, reasonable solution without totally trying to figure out demolishing and reframing this mezzanine up here. It just really wasn't feasible, especially because the original portion, again, is poured concrete between the two floors, which is great from a structural standpoint. This building is very structurally sound. It just creates some design challenges that we have to work around. I think we've pretty much worked through 95% of it. It's just gonna be getting the final, you know, touches. So we just wanted to walk through this. Lauren would have loved to have probably shared this with you, but the baby did not want to take a nap today. So she had to run back and help the babysitter get Jensen down for a nap. But I wanted to share this because this has been top of mind. I think once we work through some of these, like, where are these walls going to go and how do we lay out this bathroom so that it makes sense? Once we have that, we can really dive into the actual design. You know, we'll have our floor plan finalized and things will really start to take shape and we can start moving forward. So right now, these are what we've been dealing with. Hope that you're interested. If you are, please share this video with a friend, tell people about it. We are super excited. We are excited for what this is going to be for this community. We think it's going to be a real gem of a building once it's done. It used to be a gem. We're going to return it to that condition, but we are very excited. If you know something about hotels or have some intrigue or interest or advice, we'd love to see it. So if you want to drop a comment, but we would really appreciate a like and subscribe.